The notes accompanying these discs were drawn from hundreds of articles and scraps of information collected over 5 years from public records, interviews with family members of the musicians, archivists, collectors, researchers. I make no claim for thoroughness or definitive authority, only that I tried to piece together from what was left behind something true. I don't speak any of the languages on these discs, and I've relied on a wide variety of sources to explain them to me. It's likely that some of the sources have been flat wrong. Of course, I've tried to extricate the guesswork that's part and parcel of the research process from the finished work, but that doesn't mean it's not there. The discs themselves arrived every which way. I bought a few, but most arrived in discarded collections, or more often were donated by sympathetic friends and colleagues. The majority of them were in badly worn or damaged condition, either through decades of neglect or having been loved to death by their past owners. Several were literally picked out of the garbage along the side of the road before they reached me. The discarded detritus of a musical culture that had become irrelevant to much of America, including the descendants of the people who bought them nearly a century ago. It has been necessary to the process of sharing the music to include some recordings that are simply in wretched condition. What are you gonna do? There are obvious gaps. Why are there no Bulgarian or Albanian performances? Simply because they didn't come my way. Missing, also, is the work of the related Sephardic groups, the Smyrna Quartet and the Stambul Quartet, who released a total of about 6 records in the mid-20s. Louis Madelon, who performed with those groups and continued to perform and record in New York for several decades, was among the greatest musicians of his milieu. Likewise, Amalia Bacchus, the Romagnot, the Greek-Jewish cafe singer, and close friend of many of the musicians here, recorded 33 performances in New York in the 20s that ought to have been included, but were not. A careful study of her life and work titled In Foreign Lands Since My Childhood, Old Greek Songs in the New World, 1923 to 50, has been made by David Sofa and published by the Arhuli label. When recording of immigrants dropped off to just about nothing during the Depression, we didn't get to hear many of the performers who had first recorded during the 20s until after the Second World War, when recording recommenced. So we're getting to hear now, underneath my voice, Louis Madelon and Amalia Bacchus, but much later, in the late 40s or early 50s, and well outside the scope of this compilation. I'm resigned to the knowledge that the project is flawed, and corrections and clarifications will be received gratefully. I started doing this because I liked the music, and I got curious about it. The curiosity is still there. I must make clear that this work was undertaken without any funding or institutional support. I cannot think of this as anything other than just the beginning of something, and I would encourage listeners to approach it in the same way. My antecedents in this work, as much as any professional, are the slightly crazy record fiends who invented Americana by passionately presenting their own view of music through independently produced reissues drawn from their own record collections. Pete Whalen, Dick Spotswood, Chris Strawitz, Dave Freeman, Harry Smith, Nick Pearls, all the other guys who during the 50s and 60s studied and disseminated music that both academia and the major record labels had largely ignored. Because it's good for your soul. So, this is to honor the lives and work of some of us Americans. The old discs that survived the decades are like the stumps of cut-down trees. Their spirals are like growth ring patterns, marked with the flaws from decades of indifference or casual hostility. And like Kim Novak in Hitchcock's Vertigo, we can point to these wriggling rings and their perpendicular imperfections and see ourselves. Here I was born, and here I died. These records could be any one of us, forgotten by no fault of our own, despite giftedness or the radiance of any 3 minutes in which we might commit our expressions of dignity, hilarity, yearning, or prayer to even that most permanent medium, the stone with the song cut into it.